And yeah, but we're here to celebrate the fact that we hit our donation goal in the campaign to raise money for the boys of the Liut Brigade who are out there taking the fight to the Russians, defending Vovchansk. Um, and yeah, you guys did it, man. Whew, $43,000, 250 individual donations, helping these guys out. You guys know we partnered with Ukraine Aid Ops, a 501c3 here in the United States, to help get these guys the gear that they need, particularly jammers and analyzers. And so we've got them on order. Talk to them. There's a little bit of a back order, but once they get them up and running, it'll be on their Instagram, certainly. So you should definitely follow Ukraine Aid Ops on Instagram. Interesting. Yeah. And so I'd love to tell you there's an agenda. There's not. If you guys have particular questions or a message you want to say, you can put it up on the throw up a super chat, and we'll that'll jump to the top of the line, so to speak. You guys are asking about the gum flavors. So we did a pilot poll last time of gum flavors. It was almost evenly split between bubblegum, an extra caffeinated mint flavor, sour apple, and what was the fourth one? Help me out. I can't remember. Was it Berry Blast? Yeah, you guys should be proud to have donated. This makes a huge difference for them. I think it's really cool that we directly, that we have one unit. We know where they are. We knew who they are. We have a relationship with them. Oh, cinnamon. That was the other flavor. Yeah, a lot of people actually were like, oh, cinnamon. Yeah, people are like beer flavored, MRE flavored. Nah, cheese jalapeno spread flavored. Yeah, so I don't know what questions you guys have. The donor link is still open, by the way. Like, it's a war, so like the need for gear is unlimited. But what I'm probably gonna do, honestly, is wait a little bit, wait a couple weeks, work with them, identify another unit with a need, and then partner with another unit and try to help them out as well. But again, I'm not here to like, I'm here to like do it at a sustainable rate. Does that make sense? Yeah. But anyway, I'll throw the link in there if you guys want to donate. Like I said, it's still open. There you go. Let's see if we can just try to pin it there. And then we'll also, yeah. And also, again, if you guys are here and you're not tracking the conversation, the conversation we're talking about is Strike Gum. Strike Gum is my caffeinated gum. It's veteran owned, obviously. Made in the USA. It's made by Liquid Core in Denver. It's got all the caffeine of an energy drink in an individual piece of gum. Right, this little puppy here has the caffeine of a Red Bull or an Amp Energy, plus 100 milligrams alpha GPC and zero sugar. So if you want like the veteran discounts and all that stuff, excuse me, those are going to be on strikegum.com. But you can just go to Amazon, search Strike Gum, and we're for sale there. So you should definitely pick some up. Yeah, sorry. Don't need to see all the stats about the live stream. I mean, I guess it's like if you see the chat, you've seen the most salient information. But there it is. There's the Discord or the YouTube interface. Congrats. Ohms, thank you, man. Thanks for the membership. Strike gum, get some, baby. Alex Witter says, I'm a huge Ukraine supporter, but even I'm thinking this needs to come to the table at some point. Am I a terrible person? Russia seems to have endless cannon fodder in the regions from the regions that aren't Russian. Yeah, yes, there. I think the fact that we had, we talked about it today, that 90 plus countries are saying, listen, there is a forum for discussion about peace. The roadmap to what that looks like. That's a that is at least an admission that the war will end with a negotiated settlement, right? Which is itself kind of interesting because, for a time, there was thought that Ukraine could actually just throw Russia out of their country, right? Before things kind of settled into this frozen area, there's a revelation that at least from Ukraine and from Russia, that this war is going to end with some sort of negotiation, right? It won't end with Russian forces installing a new regime in Kiev, and it probably won't end with Ukrainian forces just kicking the last Russian unit out over the Crimean Bridge. So what does it look like then? So no, I don't think you're crazy, right? And you can sit there and acknowledge that, Ukraine, you want them to have the best possible settlement. You'd want them to get all their territory back, or as much of it as humanly possible, And you don't want them to surrender their political sovereignty. Those are all real concerns. This is top chat. Okay. There we go. So Lance has asked, do I think Ukraine's going to try a major offensive? I don't think, not until they get the personnel influx from the new conscription. I think that's going to take even longer than the aid coming in, right? The aid is already starting to replenish units on the front line, but the personnel issue, right? Because it's not just, you can't have a conscript and then have them on the front lines. You've got to send them through a certain requisite amount of training. And if you're a specialist, like an air defense operator, that training is going to take even longer. So you've got to have a training pipeline built. You have to have trainers, you have to have facilities, you have to have resources, you have to have a curriculum. And that's why there's so much discussion about NATO troops, or French troops particularly, going into Ukraine and being those trainers so that Ukrainian armed forces members can focus on the fight. And so that more soldiers can move through the pipeline, right? You literally make the pipe bigger so that more soldiers can get through the pipeline faster. Turts asks, how do I think the EU elections will influence aid to Ukraine? The data I have seen is that aid to Ukraine is very popular in Europe, and there isn't as strong of a isolationist party, because again, Europe, it's on their continent, right? The United States can sit there and go, if you're not Canada and Mexico, we don't worry about you, right? That's always been kind of there's always been more of an isolationist movement in the United States for that reason. But Europe just knows they just can't afford it, So I don't think they'll make a huge difference. Also because a lot of these countries have signed agreements already committing them to a fairly large aid package. And so even if they had an anti-Ukraine political leadership come into power, they may not be able to walk back existing agreements. It depends on individual countries, obviously, but sort of like the United States, where when Congress passes an aid package, the executive can't really disrupt it. It has to move through. Oh yeah, right. People asking what I'm drinking. I'm on a kick where I don't drink during the week. Not that I was ever like a huge drinker, but um it's one of those things where I like cut my drinking a little bit and I was like, I feel better. And also my tolerance is lower. So when I do drink, I feel worse. So then I was like, well, let me drink even less. So now basically, like last week there were 2 times I went out with a friend of mine and we got a couple drinks, but like that was it. Other than that, I drink these like non-alcoholic. They're not sodas. They're not caffeinated. They're not as carbonated as regular soda. They're not as sugary. They're like a lightly sweetened. They're good. I can't quite put my finger on. It's a little bit like imagine if you made a decaf Red Bull and a cola were to like and like a Dr. Pepper were to have a baby. That's what this is. And you guys know if you have a burning question, I know we've got what 250 viewers in the channel now, which is dope. Um, yeah, for those of you that just got here, again, there's no real agenda. We're just celebrating the fact that we hit our donation goal. Ukraine aid ops, rocking. We raised over $40,000 for the Liut Brigade, getting the fighting MPs of Ukraine. Again, 40 grand for primarily drone jammers and analyzers, shutting those Russian drones down. No, they're not. Yeah. I am not sponsored by Liars. I have no relationship with them other than the fact that I buy their stuff on Amazon. They're like kind of pricey, but they're good, and relative to the cost of like the whiskey I was drinking before, it's still like pretty affordable. And it kind of like satisfies the same thing. Like having built more of this like non-alcoholic habit, you realize that a lot of what it feels good to be like, I'm at the end of the day, everything is done, I'm ready for bed, and I know those things have happened because I've poured myself a drink and put on Netflix or went outside on my patio, right? And like you're like, oh, it's actually all the other circumstances, like the effect of one drink of alcohol, especially if you're someone who has one every night, is like totally negligible. Golden Eagle asked if I ever thought of sending strike gum to troops in Ukraine. Yes. I just read an article about how much Ukrainian forces love energy drinks. And I should see if we can send some to Ukraine aid ops, if those guys would appreciate it. Oh, Jake Bro, thank you, man. Thanks for coming in. Yeah. Don't thank me, man. Thank the community. Those guys, they stepped up, man. The boys from the Liut Brigade appreciate it so much. I know you also just had a huge fundraiser. So I think it's awesome that, we're out here, doing our part. Also, it's strange to me as someone who is in Afghanistan that, like for me, I got care packages from my friends and family. They sent me like packages of ramen, and they actually sent school supplies that we gave to the Afghan kids. But, and some people would donate like generically. They'd be like, American soldier, here's some beef jerky. But this is so unique in that, I can sit there and, I'm in a signal chat with the guys from ADOPS, and they say, hey, like we did the video interview with them. That was you guys, the community's questions. That, I was like, hey, here's the things the community wants to know about what it's like to be on the front line. Here's a few of my own questions. Like, and she did the interview, right? So like, it's weird to be in this very personal yet virtual relationship with a specific unit doing a specific job. Really unique. Jake telling people to hit the like button. Thank you. I'm I'm terrible about that. I'm trying to get better about being like, subscribe, hit the like button. Damn, yeah, I heard Jake's the real deal. in terms of what he raised, just a lot. Him, Arter Ray was another inspo. I know his work with what do they call it? The 69th Stiffing Brigade has also been extremely, extremely effective at fundraising. Interesting. Carl Rosa, I think we are considered mill bloggers by like the Russians definitely would consider at least me a mill blogger. I won't speak expressly for Jake, but would definitely consider me a mill blogger. Again, Russia seems like Telegram is the more popular platform there, but the idea of like, hey, Russian veterans out there providing analysis, commentary, and information about the conflict. Yeah, just like I'm sure the Pentagon has dossiers on all the major Russian mill bloggers, I'm sure there's files in the Kremlin on me and other mill bloggers. New Indiana Jones, thanks for the super chat. Should there be concern for the U.S. and NATO if France's government becomes more pro-Russian after their snap election? Does anyone like who's more familiar with French politics than me know? Is that like a realistic possibility? I'm not sure how right the French right looks in those terms. Like if the French right is actually like more Russian aligned. I wouldn't say there's that much nervousness because like NATO aid and EU aid has been actually pretty limited. Most of the aid has come from, like I say EU aid or NATO aid, but most of the aid is actually bilateral agreements. It's technically France giving stuff to Ukraine. There's some things that NATO has given to Ukraine, right? It's a little bit like Christmas morning, right? Some of your presents, it writes from mom and dad to little Billy. And sometimes it's from Santa to little Billy, even though it's from the same store. So I think the U.S. and NATO, there wouldn't be a huge impact if France were to reduce its aid or reduce its involvement. France is one of the most involved countries politically. What's interesting is that when you look at the Ukraine aid by percentage of GDP, let's see if we can pull up this chart here. You could see that actually some of the largest contributors is a share of GDP. Oh, yeah, here we go. Okay, so here's interesting. Let's see if we can find this here. So this is absolute dollars, right? You can see in absolute dollars. Oh, there you go. Okay, so total bilateral commitments, which means U.S. to Ukraine. U.S., all of its aid has been bilateral. Germany, 50-50. France, interestingly, is basically bankrolling EU commitments. UK, all bilateral, obviously not an EU country. Netherlands, 50-50. Italy, almost all EU. Spain, almost all EU. But you could see how different countries have actually different shares of their makeup. But then when you look at the commitments from EU countries as a percentage of GDP, you see some really interesting stuff. You see that France is actually committing a fairly small percentage of its GDP, 0.56. It's one of the lighter countries here. Only countries like Switzerland, which is fascinating that they're doing it at all, is a notoriously neutral country. Then you look at someone like Poland, who's contributing at a GDP percentage base. What's that? Almost 3 times, maybe twice, over twice of what France is contributing. Right? And then you look at a country like Estonia, somebody who feels threatened imminently by Russia. They are committing, again, what's that? Nearly 8 times, seven times what France is as on a GDP basis. Again, absolute numbers are what matters, right? But small but mighty, you see coming from guys like Estonia and Lithuania. As well as from Denmark. Denmark also really committed to this. So all that to say, that's kind of the perception that you should go into this. I'm really surprised, actually. I'm genuinely surprised that so much of France's contributions have been through the EU, which is kind of weird. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, Kaltenberg says most of Europe seems to be more aware of the Russian threat than Americans, which makes some sense. Europe is close to Russia. I think there's a lot of truth to that. Remember, a lot of these countries in the EU now were under Soviet domination. And so you have someone like Poland who sits there and goes, "Listen, I know what it's like to be under the Kremlin's thumb, right? We were under the Kremlin's thumb in a really concrete way." And I think that knowledge um it, is more concrete to the EU. I also think it's kind of interesting that and telling that as much as Russia claims that it's other countries are our friends, it's great to be in the Russian coalition of independent states. Like it's our Russian security and economic areas are great. They're a real rival to the EU. But then you look at charts like that one, and you're like, damn, like post-Soviet countries absolutely, positively revile the Russians, right? Like that story, I think, is undertold. Countries that literally were under Russian domination. Again, Putin, who says, I want to restore the Soviet Union. Estonia is like, absolutely not. 4 cents of every dollar produced in Estonia is going to bankroll your enemies, Russia. Latvia also contributing massively, right? 2% of all Lithuanian GDP. Poland, again, like imagine every single dollar produced, not taxed, produced in the country. 1.5 cents of it goes to Ukraine aid. Slovakia, Hungary, Romania, right? Bulgaria, 1% of all Bulgarian GDP. These are huge numbers and are really reflective. Germany, 1%. Czech Republic, 1%. Austria, 0.8. Literally, as you follow the Iron Curtain, you basically see that post countries that were never dominated by Russia generally seem to be donating less aid, which is kind of fascinating. Generally, again, if you share a border with Russia, they seem to just also be like committed, So what other questions do you guys have? Okay, Dave is a little bit of I can't tell if it's a troll comment, but how does Ukraine cope once the current military packages dwindle in 6 to 9 months? Okay, so the military packages are we've talked about this, are forecasted to last. The U.S. package, the big one, is going to cover Ukraine for more or less 18 months, is what the U.S. estimate is, and that's sort of the plan. But 24 months is how long it's going to take the U.S. or the EU to ramp up their own defense industrial base, because the EU has come to the realization, belatedly, that in fact Russia is a real threat. The EU cannot just operate as a trade bloc. They have to operate as a military and political bloc as well. And so they're slowly ramping up their defense industrial base. It takes a long time for the EU bureaucracy to do anything. But they're hoping that in 2 years, the actual providers of actual rounds going into Russians is going to flip-flop. It's going to go from Russian rounds to EU-produced rounds. Or excuse me, from US rounds to EU-produced rounds. Yeah, James pointing out, I think that's an interesting point. The state of Texas has an economy similar in size to the entire nation of Russia. Interestingly enough, the the Russian, the Russian economy and the Texas economy are not that different, right? Driven at first heavily by oil and other raw materials, but Russia increasingly trying to be like a tech export, like higher end stuff. Oh, okay, Dave. Sorry, I apologize for the allegation. Again, it's hard to know sometimes because it's like a lot of trolls come in and are like they pretend to not know. They tend to be like, when that aid dries up in 6 weeks, and it's like, well, no, it's 18 months of aid. But now you know. U.S. estimates were that it's gonna persist. It's gonna enable Ukraine for about 18 months. The U.S. economy is indeed rocking and rolling. I'll try to find you this chart, right? Let's see. U.S. voters' perception of economy. Yeah, let's see if I can find over time. Let's see. There's a really good chart that showed U.S. opinions of the economy. Yeah, wait, is this it? Yes. Okay. Let's see. There should be a more recent one. Yeah, here we go. This is close to that. But here we go. Check it out. Okay. This is just this to me is like quintessential American politics. As you could see, look at this. Throughout the 90s, basically, American voters, whether you were a Democrat or Republican, like lived in the same universe, right? When the economy was good, it was good. When it was bad, it was bad. But you notice, right? Bush won. Republicans thought it was a little better than it was, but they both agreed when things were bad. Then Bush 2, you started to see this weird bifurcation, right? The Democrats thought the economy was really bad, and Bush thought it was good. And then they were still kind of aligned to the Obama years, right? It was bad, but gradually improving. And then the moment Trump won the election, look at this. Republicans thought the economy was outstanding, and Democrats began to think it was terrible. Then you had the coronavirus, right? Pandemic, where both people agreed that it was horrible. But look at this. Democrats believed that the economy tanked, bottomed out in 2020, basically tracking a little bit after the stock market bottomed out. Republicans believe that it bottomed out actually when Biden took office, and that they believe it's basically had no recovery. And the second Biden took office, right, again, you can see Democrats' opinions absolutely switching spots, right? You see this little, there's your gray line. The second Biden took office, their opinions of each other flip-flopped of the economy, which is crazy. Crazy to see, like, just over time, such a stark, just like a switch, just a total 180. Like, I don't know, is that not insane to you guys? And don't get me wrong, this isn't me saying, oh, the economy is actually good, the economy is actually bad. I'll share my opinion because this is just opinion. Don't treat this as like factual analysis. I think the economy has gotten more bifurcated, and so the winners they've never done better. If you ever seen Professor Scott Galloway, I think he does a spot on analysis. Is that the economy is bifurcated? If you're doing well, you are doing so well, right? My tech bro friends, physicians, like high earners, crushing it. But if people that are middle class, like middle class, lower middle class, like they are doing so much worse. And so I think some of this is obviously partisan, right? The economy did not radically shift with the inauguration. It just didn't happen, or the election win in the inauguration. Like, it's kind of wild that literally Biden won the election and people thought the economy was better than it was. And Trump lost, and Republicans suddenly were like, the economy's absolutely destroyed. And yeah, exactly. So like Steve Walters points out, right? Inflation, as many economists point out, like globally, again, this is not my opinion. This is economic fact. Inflation is a tax on primarily the poor, because fixed income folks, impoverished people, because they carry more of their net worth in cash. Right. Corporate profits very high. Like, it is a economy that is both doing well, but it's only doing well in like a bunch of weird sectors. Again, a stock market is one measure of the economy. It's how publicly traded companies are doing. It's how the largest companies are doing. And by extension, those who invest in those companies. So again, if you're somebody at the tail end of their career with a big 401k, you're probably doing great. If you're somebody who is early in their career and most of your wealth is in like your job, the check you get from your job every month, things are a lot tougher. John Cromwell's like, who you voting for? Mark Landwehr sums it up great. I'm voting for the best candidate, the candidate who is going to best govern the country, which will obviously be myself. You never know. Maybe I'll write you. Maybe I'll be like, write me in for president. I don't think I'm qualified, actually. I think I need. What's the minimum? Is the minimum age 40? I guess I should know that before I'd be like, elect me president. I mean, I feel like. Oh, natural born citizen, 35 years old. Okay. Interesting. All right, so I'm okay. I'm just screwing around. Don't write me in for president. If you're gonna write in somebody for president, I think it should be. I don't know. Brendan Herrera. I wanted to see Brendan Herrera make it to Congress. Not that I think that he's a genius, but like Congress is currently run by a bunch of lawyers and like deep political insiders, and that is just I want every politician to sweat every election. That's what I want. I want them to sweat that some TikToker is going to come for their job. Like that I love. Pop, it's not a nepo hire if you are at least as qualified as the bottom third of presidential appointees, probably the bottom half of presidential appointees. I've seen some of them. Yeah, U.S. has always been run. Well, the U.S. was not always run by lawyers. A lot of the founding fathers were like farmers. They were large estate holders. Yeah, I mean, so the papers that covered the runoff referred to Herrera as YouTuber. Oh man, it was a Clinton reference. Yeah, don't expect me to get a Clinton reference. Founding farmers, exactly. Yeah, I'm not saying Oh damn, does Brandon Herrera really support Russia? No way. I can't believe that. Actually, I kind of can, but I don't want to. People like Brennan Herrera is a Russian plant. The AK guy. There's something on the unsubscribed podcast, but it seems like a joke. Wikitubia. He boxed James Sellers. Wait, what did it? Oh. Wait, Brennan Herrera boxed a dude? Didn't know anything about this. Damn. Though. Okay, look at this. I didn't even realize this. Right? Herrera lost the runoff election 49.3 to Gonzalez's 50.7. Literally a 1% margin. Squeaking it out. Really? Okay, I got it. I got to look this up if he's really a Putin apologist. I wonder if he still has his website up. Herrera Ukraine stance. Let's see his stance. Oh, interesting. Apparently made a video. Okay, all right, weird. Hey there, President Zelensky. Saw a comment that was left on my latest video about Ukraine. Would you be open to do an interview for my next one? This is from 2022. Okay. All right, weird. But all right. I mean, he did a lot of... I remember Gun Meme Review during the Ukraine war. I wonder if it's on like his website on border policy, red flag laws, Ukraine and more. I don't want to. Oh, here we go. Issues. They do not include finishing the wall and returning the Remain in Mexico policy. The irony is Biden just implemented the Remain in Mexico. Ending the phony asylum claim racket. Again, this was a bill that was in Congress. I mean, this is kind of a salacious term, but yeah, where they were going to provide expedited asylum claim adjudication, which is, I think, what he's describing as the racket. So this is not that unhinged, but okay, finishing the wall is kind of dumb. Even Border Patrol is like, we don't need a wall across the entire country. But Remain in Mexico and ending the asylum, creating a fairer adjudicating asylum system that actually adjudicates cases promptly. Those are things that the current administration is trying to do all of a sudden, which I think is a hilarious switcheroo. Expand TRICARE to veterans. Whoa, okay. Oppose endless wars. Oppose spending billions of our dollars to defend Ukraine's borders where ours remain wide open. Bring soldiers home from places like Syria and Iraq where we have no direct national interests. This part makes sense. Will oppose spending billions of our dollars to defend Ukraine borders while our borders remain open. Okay, so if you actually read into this, he's like, fix the border and then we'll support Ukraine. So not crazy. Not crazy. Like not that unhinged. I know that was what the pro-Russian side said. The sad thing is that, like, remember they got a bill. They got an immigration reform bill. The Democrats are going to back it. And then Trump nuked it. And, like, again, yeah, it is. That argument is dumb, like at baseline. And if you're the politician move there was to take something very popular and uncontroversial, which is aiding Ukraine, and link it to something very controversial that the politicians wanted to get done, which is a big border reform deal. And by linking something very popular in the U.S. public, Ukraine aid, to something very unpopular, a border reform, and difficult, they were able to actually get as close as possible to I've never seen a meaningful border reform deal get that close to passage. Oh, he said he'll block all aid in like an interview or something. That doesn't shock me. It's hard to know sometimes. It's like Mike Johnson. Mike Johnson was like, no Ukraine aid until a border deal. And then once the border deal fell apart, he's like, hey, Ukraine aid, let it go. So like, is he going to Mike Johnson it? Or is he like a Mike Johnson, or is he a Marjorie Taylor Greene? Because Marjorie Taylor Greene was like, no Ukraine aid means no Ukraine aid. Mike Johnson was like, I gave it the old college try. I mean, yeah, as I always tell people, you could fix the border 90% of it by removing the incentive, which the incentive is the asylum claim system. You get in, you make an asylum claim, then you get in line. You're in the 5-year wait for your court date. And the problem is that there are people with nonsense claims who shouldn't really be getting asylum, and they sit in the same line as the people who have really legitimate claims. So like, somebody who's like, hey, I'm a Venezuelan dissident and they are going to put me in jail if I return. Like, that person needs asylum in the United States, and they have to wait in the same line as the guy who was like, the cartels threaten my family. And I'm like, did the cartels threaten you because you're a member of a rival cartel, you know? Okay. It's almost 8:45. Do you guys have any other questions? I'm going to get out of here kind of soon. Again, a huge thank you to everybody that donated. This made such a huge difference. Really, it helped these guys out tremendously. It means a ton that you guys stepped up. And, this isn't the only unit we're going to partner with. We're going to work on getting another fundraiser out and running. You can still donate to this one, of course. So, yeah, I appreciate all you guys. Jack Longhurst, tell us about Strike Gun before you leave. I'll throw the link up there if you guys want to pick some up. StrikeGum.com. You can just go search it for search it on Amazon. Search Strike Gum. You can get some. If you need that energy drink boost, do it, Anyway, I appreciate you guys, and I will see you in the next one.